So the New York Times is reputable, right? I mean, they've been around for 1,003 years. This is a newspaper that you can just depend on, right? And I will admit, this piece comes from the opinion section. It's an opinion op-ed piece. Pedophilia, a disorder, not a crime. Okay, yeah. Once again, it's an opinion piece, but it's in the New York Times, which, in and of itself will validate this opinion in many, many jacked up minds. Now, when it comes to this argument, I use it myself when it comes to the drug war. I do not believe that we should, throw people away and destroy lives because of an addiction, but we've treated it like a crime, and we've done amazing amounts of damage to American families, and not just the urban ones, suburban ones too. I mean, Traffic? Did you see the movie Traffic? I don't know if you did, but the guy's daughter was the councilman or the drug czar's daughter was heavily hooked on drugs, and he's like, oh my goodness, we gotta keep going. Deal is that we were all sold a lie with that. When it comes to the drug war, it was a complete lie, complete nonsense, complete BS that was only put in place to fill up the prison systems. When it comes to pedioism, nah, fam. Nah, not at all. Let's get into this. Oh, look at this picture. This guy over here is cowering while watching children play. And my question to this gentleman would be, don't you have a job or something? Don't you have something more important to do, prioritize, my man, prioritize. Margot Kaplan is the writer of this piece, and this was published in October of 2014. That's right, 5 years ago. And now we're at a point where you have these drag queen story hours and the drag kids and the My Name is Jazz and all this genderism and all this other stuff that is really taking a hold in the mainstream. And it's like, oh, yikes. Everything. It's so weird because I do not consider myself a conservative by any stretch of the imagination, but I do have conservative sensibilities due to the fact that I was brought up in a Christian household, in a Christian house by a minister of all things. So there are lines, and when it comes to youth and everything else like that, that's where a real thick line is. So it's coming out of Camden, New Jersey, of course, because Jersey's just terrible. I was born into this awful. I was born into this chaos. So it is what it is. Think back to your first childhood crush. Maybe it was a classmate or a friend next door. Most likely, though, school and into adulthood, your affections continue to focus on others in your approximate age group. But imagine if they did not. I'm gonna stop you right there, Margot. If she looked good, I mean, I've always maintained age appropriate, make no mistake. But, after a certain point, you can't tell ages and stuff like that. And if I find her physically attractive, I find her physically attractive. And this is like at the 17 and up mark, nowhere near pedo status. By some estimates, 1% of the male population, really, it's about the male population. How any words on the female population? Because this is another reason why I wanted to get into this this opinion piece here, because you're not talking about the female population, which you are a part of. Which, I mean, look at all the teachers who are, being intimate with their students. Look at, like myself, the first person that I was ever with intimately was an older woman. So, I mean, it's not, and that's another crazy part of it, is that females do make up more of the population. So thusly, you're missing more than half of the population in your estimates, all right? 1% of the male population continues long after puberty to find themselves attracted to prepubescent children. I don't know. My brain don't work like that, so I couldn't tell you. These people are living with pedophilia, attraction to prepubescents that often constitutes a mental illness. Unfortunately, our laws are failing them and consequently ignoring opportunities to prevent child abuse. Would you like to know the best way to prevent child abuse? Keep an eye on your child. Make sure that your child isn't vulnerable to strangers or even to family members or anyone else like that. make sure that they know where you are and you know where they are at all times, as particularly during their prepubescent phases, because I've seen way too many kids just dropped off with other people, and oh man, the amount of fatherlessness is just staggering. So one of the best ways to prevent child abuse is to have that child in a home where people that actually love them and actually care about them, and want to see that person that they made succeed, as opposed to all these broken people we got running around here who were made on a whim. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders defines pedophilia as the intense and recurrent sexual interest in children, and a disorder if it causes a person marked distress or interpersonal difficulty, or if the person acts on his interest. Yet his, right? You hear that, right? This is not a gendered issue, darling. Yet our laws ignore pedophilia until after the commission of a sexual offense, emphasizing punishment, not prevention. The deal is that the prevention should be coming from the parents of the child. Part of this failure stems from the misconception that pedophilia is the same as child molestation. One can live with pedophilia and not act on it. Sites like Virtuous Pedophiles provide support for pedophiles who do not molest children and believe that sex with children is wrong. It is not that these individuals are inactive or non-practicing pedos, but rather that pedophilia is a status and not a act. In fact, research shows about half of all children molesters are not sexually attracted to their victims. So then why would... it's so frustrating. It really is. Because these kids should never be in a position to be vulnerable in the first place. And this isn't to victim blame parents or anything else like that, but it's just like you took the time to make a person. Keep an eye on them, man. God, care about them. Love them. That one hug. They missed that one hug. A second misconception is that pedophilia is a choice. If these guys just sat there and said they don't have to act on their urges, they're not going to be acting on their urges, then it's definitely a choice now, isn't it? Recent research, while often limited to sex offenders because of the stigma of pedophilia, suggests that the disorder may have neurological origins. Everything has a neurological origin. Everything originates from the atom. Pedophilia could result from a failure in the brain to identify which environmental stimuli should provoke a sexual response. MRIs of sex offenders with pedophilia show fewer of the neural pathways known as white matter in their brains. Men with pedophilia are 3 times more likely to be left-handed or ambidextrous. Okay, wow. A finding that strongly suggests a neurological cause. Some findings also suggest that disturbances in neurodevelopment in utero or early childhood increase the risk of pedophilia. Studies have also shown that men with pedophilia have, on average, lower scores on tests of visual spatial ability and verbal memory. So, to go over what I just read... She's saying that if you're left-handed or ambidextrous, there is a 3 times more likely chance that you're a kid diddler, or you have the tendency or the ability to be a kid diddler. And then they're saying that they've tracked people from birth to kid diddling. The Virtuous Pedophiles website really, it's just like, there's so many other things to be concerned about in this world, right? Why would kid diddling be something to bother yourself with? It's full of testimonials who vow never to touch a child and yet live in terror. Why? They must hide their disorder from everyone they know or risk losing educational and job opportunities and face the prospect of harassment and even violence. Many feel isolated. Some contemplate suicide. The psychologist Jesse Buring, author of Perv, the Sexual Deviant in All of Us, writes that people with pedophilia aren't living their lives in the closet. They are internally hunkered down in a panic room. That sounds real personal, my G. You might want to go get a pill or something like that if you're feeling that type of anxiety. But if you're feeling that type, like, how? If you're sitting here saying, nah, I'm not going to do it this isn't something that I'm have any interest in, then my dude, go get a hobby, go get some pills, burn one down to the ground. If you need some licks, no liquor. That's liquor get in there quicker. Can you dig it? Nah. But I'm saying they're internally hunkered down in a panic room, but they're out living their lives. Just enjoy your life. I mean, I'm sorry. This is not a mental issue in which I'm familiar with, because this has never been an urge of mine. I had a taste of older women when I was a kid. Kind of stuck in that realm, you know. But this really feels like making excuses, you know, trying to just soften the public up to the idea that, you know what, it's okay, it's perfect. And there's been many companies and organizations that have been pushing that even in Pride Month. I mean, it was a lot more subtle, but I mean, next June they'll more than likely be a lot louder about it. But yeah, they're like, oh, age isn't love is love. Love knows no gender. Love knows no race. Love knows no age and stuff like that. Whoa, pimpin', take it easy there, champ. Nah. While treatment cannot eliminate a pedophile's sexual interest, a combination of cognitive behavioral therapy and medication can help him to manage urges and avoid committing crimes. Bruh, if you need all that, man, what happened to the loony bins? But the reason we don't know enough about effective treatment is because research has been limited to those who have committed crimes, because, yeah, you committed crime. I mean, and the deal is that imagine all the people that didn't get caught. Our current law is inconsistent and irrational. For example, federal law in 20 states allow courts to issue a civil order committing a sex offender, particularly one with a diagnosis of pedophilia, to a mental health facility immediately after the completion of his sentence. There you go. Under standards that they are much more lax than for ordinary civil commitment for people with mental illness. And yet, when it comes to public policies that might help people with pedophilia to come forward and seek treatment before they offend, the law omits pedophilia from protection. You know what? Hold on. The Americans with Disability Act of 1990 and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 prohibit discrimination against otherwise qualified individuals with mental disabilities in areas such as employment, education, and medical care. Congress, however, explicitly excluded pedophilia from protection under those two crucial laws. Now, here's where you're kind of catching me here, Marco, because I'm actually for that. If you want to come forward and say, hey, I have a problem, and, you know, and I don't want to sit here and say put them on the registry or anything else like that. No, because that's probably a big thing that would stop people from coming forward. But if you haven't committed a crime and you feel like you have a problem and you want to get that help, you want to get that treatment, and I guess you can't afford to get it on your own or whatever, I am for that. Hey, if you want to admit to the crime, not to the crime, but admit to a tendency to maybe commit a crime, particularly one so heinous, yeah, I'm actually for that. Let them come forward, Congress. That's a little nuts. I mean, Congress, we're not sitting here talking about people who've actually committed the act. We're talking about people who are scared that they could commit the act, and thusly, you know, they want to knock it out first foremost and not have to worry about, you know, any kind of stigma being attached to them. And that I can respect. I'm not sure how that would translate, because see, that's the thing about these laws, is that it's not really the law, it's the application of the law. So we'll see how that would translate. But as far as people wanting to come forward and seek help, that's actually perfect. I'm 130% behind that. It's time to revisit these categorical exclusions without legal protection. A pedophile cannot risk seeking treatment or disclosing his status to anyone for support. He could lose his job and future job prospects. If he is seen at a group therapy session, ask for a reasonable accommodation to take medication or see a psychiatrist, or request a limit in his interaction with children, isolating individuals from appropriate employment and treatment only increases their risk of committing a crime. Maybe. You kind of turned me around here in this article. I mean, but for the most part, I'm still if they want it, this is something that Congress should have done without question. But I'm also not okay with the idea of trying to normalize this thing. But if people are having issues and do want to feel safe coming out, by all means. There's no question that the extension of civil rights protections to people with pedophilia must be weighed. Okay, civil rights protections, you already got your civil rights. I mean, you're covered in so many different ways. Must be weighed again because you are still talking about less than a percentage point of the population. So that's the thing. These laws end up being disproportionate, and particularly when it comes to pedophilia or it comes to the LGBTQ thing. It's one of those situations where you can just be like, oh yeah, I'm a girl now, and like, oh, I'm a pedo now, so let me get this extra special protection for me. It's just adding on and making more pathways to buffoonery, I guess. It stands to reason that a pedophile should not be hired as a grade school teacher, but both the ADA and the Rehabilitation Act contain exemptions for people who are not otherwise qualified for a job or who pose a direct threat to the health and safety of others that can't be eliminated by a reasonable accommodation. This is why employers don't have to hire blind bus drivers or mentally unstable security guards. The direct threat analysis rejects the idea that employers can rely on generalizations. They must assess the specific case and rely on evidence, not presuppositions. Those who worry that employers would be compelled to hire dangerous pedophiles should look to HIV case law, where for years courts were highly conservative, erring on the side of finding a direct threat, even into the late 1990s, when medical authorities were in agreement that people with HIV could work safely in, for example, food industries or food services. Removing the pedophilia exclusion would not undermine criminal justice or its role in responding to child abuse. It would not make it easier, for example, for someone accused of child molestation to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. A pedophile should be held responsible for his conduct, but not for the underlying attraction. Point. I see. That's the thing. I'm not going to be one of these people that just like I hate whatever you say. No. This is a point. Like, if you didn't commit a crime, because it's about what you do. So if you didn't commit a crime, you should definitely not be held to a jacked up standard, because that's not how this society moves forward. But if you're willing to admit that, hey, I might have a problem right here and I need to get some help, there should be tons of avenues opened up for you for your disorder. But as far as like the whole civil rights thing, dude, take it easy. No. Particularly when they are associated with real harm. But the fact that pedophilia is so despised is precisely why our responses to it in criminal justice and mental health have been so inconsistent and counterproductive. But that's the thing, because you're talking about kids, Miss Kaplan. And the deal is, and I will always fall back on this, every single child is a product of two people. The two people that made that child should be watching over that child, particularly during its prepubescent up to tween years. Like, you got about like 10, 11 years right there. Make the most out of it. Set the foundation for a decent human being, because that's really all the time you got. After that, they're the worlds, because they got their friends at school. They got all these other different influences coming in. You really have a rather short amount of time to be the main and sole influence in a child's life. And that's that's why parents are important. That's why parents guiding their children instead of allowing the child to guide them is important. And here in America, I mean, particularly in the West, we have this whole thing where, oh man, kids rule and kids are so smart and all this other shit. Kids are fucking, pardon my French, but kids are idiots. Okay? Like, I know, I was there. Hell no, I shouldn't have been voting that shit. No, of course not. And hell no, I wasn't anywhere near prepared to make the choices that, a lot of these transgender people are like, oh yeah, this kid, oh man, like that one Lindsay chick from the Queer Kid stuff. Oh yes, at 4 and 5 years old, we should be talking to kids about gender. Like, you see how all this jambalaya is making one gigantic freaking mess? Like I was saying, and here in the West, we've really gone out of our way to emasculate the men and masculinity, as well as place the kids in this position where, oh yes, we're gonna follow the kid. Like those Parkland douchebags. I mean, not all of them. The Kyle kid seems smart enough, but that Emma chick and the Dave Hogg kid, my God, is he over 18 yet? Because that kid, man, Like, dude, like, let's sit down, let's have a conversation, like, let's have a beer, and you can tell me exactly how you're as, I guess, amped up as you are, but then he'll probably show me a paycheck. But either ways, you know, this right here, it just turned to a bit, I get where you're coming from, Miss Kaplan. I really do. I understand it. And when it comes to, hey, the portion where they want to be able to come forward before they commit a crime, I'm with. The civil rights stuff, not really. Acknowledging that pedophiles have a mental disorder and removing the obstacles from them coming forward and seeking help is not only the right thing to do, but it would also advance efforts to protect children from harm. But the most important way the only way to really protect children from harm is for those parents to love that kid. And love that kid enough to make sure they know where that kid is damn near at all times and to raise them right. You know, and oh, well, what's being raised right? Shit, man, at least having two parents in the home, two parents that care enough to maybe check homework, you know, maybe go into the school every once in a while, not to fight bullies. Like, that's the dumbest thing ever. But not to fight bullies, but to you know, like talk to the teachers and make sure that their kid is getting is moving in a proper direction. Hell, I mean, me personally, once I'm making over 100K a year, my kids are getting homeschooled because, you know, what the schools have been pumping out for the past 40, 50 years has been really unhelpful nonsense and garbage. You know, you guys, we spend, as Americans, we spend like 14, 15, 16 years in school and come out with, I mean, after college debt and before and after high school, really no idea how to operate in the real world. Okay. So, I mean, it's all kind of for naught. Anyways, I think that's the end of this video. All the internet stuff. Like it if you liked it, or dislike it. I'm not scared of you. Sub if you enjoy my fantastic voice. Share, because sharing is caring. And let me know what you think in the comments. Is this a push to normalize this idea of, oh yeah, well, you know, they're just sick, they just need a little help, but combined with the, you know, love knows no age stuff that we saw during Pride Month and all these different transgender movements and bullying that we saw during June. I mean, I don't know, it seems a little nuts to me. But with that being said, until the next one.